take a look at how we're actually rendering the various different fields up here within this black box that we're going to be referring to as a container. Container is one of the entities that we work with in the vocabulary that is mapped to the front-end UI. Those entities are built into a pre-baked template that's also available to be imported into your Rule Vocabulary, also available from the GitHub repository for the Corticon samples. Up here I have the root level, which is an entity called UI. Here we're seeing that UI.language is English, UI.path2data has been set to quote, and current stage number is 3. Within the context of UI, I have a child association. That UI has a associated child called containers, and within containers, I have defined various different parameters such as the title, as we see up here. That field title underneath containers has been rendered as the header of this particular stage of the form. Beneath that container, I have any number, a one-to-many relationship with UI controls. So I've created a container within the UI entity and a number of, in this case just one, UI controls underneath that particular container to render at this stage when that container renders. When I define a UI control, which is the, again, the vernacular we'll be using for each individual one of these inputs, basically I might have any number of these requests to the end user to fill out something, or a prompt that is just read-only text to provide some guidance along the way. In this case, we'll see that I have a multiple choice for a UI control type. I am labeling it, please select an insurance deductible. I'm giving it a unique ID, which just needs to be unique within the context of this particular stage, being stage 3. I am telling it with this field name that the front end, when I, as the end user, select any option, 100, 300, or 500 for deductible, the field name underneath the accrued data that is currently assigned to be the path2data, so underneath quote, I'm going to be parsing whatever the user says the option to be, and I'm going to assign it as the value to the field deductible. So whatever I select will be parsed out, and we'll see it in a moment underneath quote dot deductible with whichever selection I make. Now, for multiple choice UI controls, I can populate out the different options in a number of different ways. In this case, I've just hard-coded, so to speak, the different options, 100, 300, 500, as values within the rules. So as opposed to just stopping at the level of the UI control, you'll see I also have an array of options being rendered as a child entity beneath UI control. So this multiple choice UI control has 3 associated children entities, each of them being options, representing one of the 3 different levels of deductibles that I want to present to the end user. Now, this is just one of the UI control types, but there's a lot of configurability in this one alone. I don't need to statically define these text values. Perhaps I want to present these list of options based upon maybe something that the end user has entered into a previous stage in the form. Maybe I have a number of different policies that I'm looking to open, and this is going to be presenting a drop-down of which policy I would like to be assigning new data to. Or maybe I have perhaps that list of different states in the previous stage of 51 different options. Maybe I don't want to statically define all of those within the text of a rule sheet. What I can do instead is just pull in data fields from an array of a JSON structure pulled in via any REST JSON structured endpoint, and we can, from the front end, pull in those options as the array of potential options and have the rules simply instruct the front end to create a multiple choice UI control, but to render as the drop-down options the values from that URL of the JSON structured data. Now, The UI control type of multiple choices is just one of, obviously, any number of UI controls that you might create. There are out-of-the-box UI controls, so to speak, in the template that we provide via the rendering files in that Corticon.js GitHub repository. What that template provides for is both on the rule modeling side, the custom data types for UI control.type that restrain the end user to be able to only create rules that will populate out UI controls with a specified list of types as the only options. That way we can ensure that when we create new code on the front end, which will render not just a multiple choice UI control type, but perhaps we want to allow the end user to have a map rendered, a geographic place to actually assign where the property is. So maybe that's a GIS control as the UI control type. As we add that as an option, we might then add to our list of UI control custom data types the GIS option so that we now have that at our disposal. So out of the box, there's about 10 to 15 different UI control types that the front end is prepared to render when Corticon directs it to render it, but that's completely expandable. You're not limited to the type of UI controls or anything like that, just as you're not limited to the styling or the various different ways that you might choose to present this aesthetically to the end user when we do encounter a given UI control type.